Tomorrow morning, 6:47 in the morning, you unlock your phone. The screen lights up your face, the room is quiet, and there is nothing there. No new messages, no missed calls, no little red badges, just that blank blue-white glow. And here is the weird part. Your body does not experience that silence as neutral. It can read it like a threat. Today, we are unpacking a claim that sounds almost rude until you follow the wiring. Why your body can age faster from loneliness than it does from smoking every single day. And what faster even means when you are talking about biology, not birthdays. Most of us have a clean mental filing system for this stuff. Smoking goes in the obviously damages your body folder. You can picture it. Smoke in lungs, chemicals in blood, plaque in arteries. It is concrete. Loneliness goes somewhere totally different. It is mental health, it is social, it is sadness. Real, sure, but not the kind of thing you would expect to show up in your cells. And if you have ever felt lonely while surrounded by people, you have probably wondered if that even counts. Like, if you are technically not alone, why does it hit so hard? That question matters more than it sounds, because your body does not respond to head counts, it responds to signals. Here is the contradiction that forces us to take loneliness seriously. Across a lot of research, people with stronger social connection tend to have better health outcomes, and people with chronic social disconnection tend to do worse over time, not just mood-wise, health-wise. Julianne Holt-Lundstad and other researchers who have looked at big-picture data have argued that social connection belongs in the same general category as other major health factors. Not because friends are magical, but because your physiology is built around other humans. And once you understand that, aging stops being this slow, poetic thing. It becomes a set of measurable maintenance jobs your body either keeps up with or starts postponing. Smoking is damage you can point to. Loneliness is something sneakier. It can become a constant instruction to your body about how safe the world is. And if that instruction sticks around, the trade-off is brutal. Because survival mode is expensive and the bill gets paid in the currency of aging. So what is the actual mechanism? And where does a feeling get enough authority to compete with a toxin? Let us make a small deal before we go any further. If a thought can change your heart rate in seconds, if you have ever had that moment where one text makes your stomach drop, then it is not a stretch to say a persistent social state can change your biology over months. If you buy that, even a little, the rest of this gets a lot easier to see. And also, quick trust check. This is not going to be one of those videos that tells you to drink lemon water, raise your vibration, and calls it science. It is also not a scaremongering talk that makes you feel broken. We are going to stay on mechanisms you can actually verify. We are going to trace one signal, perceived disconnection, through three major systems: your nervous system, your immune system, and your repair systems, including sleep. Then we will come back and answer the title directly: how loneliness can plausibly push your biological aging faster than smoking every single day, especially when loneliness is chronic. And at the end, I will give you a simple, specific protocol, not be more social, actual steps that target the same dials we are about to watch. Loneliness turn. Start with something that sounds almost offensive until you remember you are an animal. Your brain has to decide whether you are safe. For most of human history, being separated from your group was not a vibe, it was risk. If you got injured, no one helped. If you got sick, no one brought food. If something attacked, there was no backup. So over time, nervous systems that treated social separation as a danger cue tended to survive. That is why loneliness is not just sadness. It is your threat detection systems picking up a missing safety signal. Naomi Eisenberger's work is often cited here because it helped popularize the idea that social pain is not processed like some fluffy, unrelated emotion. It overlaps with the same broad neural machinery that handles other kinds of pain and threat. The point is not that rejection is literally a knife wound. The point is that your brain treats social threat as important enough to recruit serious hardware. And most people miss this. Loneliness is not the same thing as being alone. You can be alone and feel peaceful. You can be at a party and feel isolated. Your body is responding to your perception. Am I supported, seen, backed up? Because that perception is what predicts safety. So once your brain lands on the idea, I am on my own, what happens next? It looks like an emotion, but it is actually a mode switch. When threat is the interpretation, your body leans towards sympathetic activation, the go side of the nervous system, and it leans on the stress hormone system that helps you mobilize resources. Not because stress is evil. Stress is fuel. But fuel is meant to be burned for a moment, not poured on the engine all day. This is where Bruce McEwen's idea of allostatic load becomes useful. Allostasis is your body staying stable by changing, adjusting heart rate, blood pressure, glucose, immune activity, depending on what is happening. The load is what builds up when you ask those systems to keep adjusting over and over, like you are living in a permanent, something is about to happen posture. You get a body that is slightly more braced and a little more vigilant. Your cardiovascular system does more work at baseline. Your metabolism gets nudged toward readily available energy, and cortisol becomes less like a clean morning get-up-and-go signal. Instead, cortisol becomes more like a messy budget committee that keeps reallocating money away from long-term projects. And here is a pattern break that matters for the title. I am going to defend cigarettes for a second, not morally, biologically. Smoking is damage, yes, but it is also, in a strange way, predictable damage. It is a dose, it spikes, then it fades. Your body has a chance, between exposures, to try to rebalance. Chronic loneliness does not feel like a dose. It can feel unresolved, unscored, like you are waiting for something that never arrives. And that kind of uncertainty is exactly what keeps a threat system from standing down. So you are not inflamed because you caught something. You can become inflamed because stress tells your immune system to preload for injury. This is the pivot most people never hear about, because we talk about immunity like it is one simple stat, strong or weak. But immune systems do not just get stronger, they get reprioritized. One well-known line of research here comes from Steve Cole and colleagues, often discussed under the phrase conserved transcriptional response to adversity, or CTRA. The basic idea is that chronic social stressors can shift immune gene expression in a direction. That made evolutionary sense, more inflammatory readiness and less emphasis on certain antiviral responses. Why would that ever be helpful? Imagine the logic your body is running. If you are alone, you are at higher risk of physical injury. Injury means bacteria. So inflammatory first responders, cells and signals that swarm a wound, are the urgent priority. Antiviral defenses, which are crucial but often slower and more resource-intensive in different ways, can get relatively downshifted. Most people miss what that implies. It is not that your immune system is weak. It is that your immune system is being asked to prepare for the wrong kind of future. And if that switch flips for a day, maybe that is fine. If it flips for months, now you're in the territory of chronic low-grade inflammation. That is one of the big background themes that shows up again and again in aging and age-related disease, not as a single villain, but as a kind of biological static that makes everything harder. Blood vessels, insulin signaling, tissue repair, even brain function. So we have got threat mode, we have got stress budgeting, and we have got immune priorities shifting toward inflammation. Now for the part that seems unrelated until you see the loop. Sleep. People assume sleep problems come from being busy or caffeine or screens. Those matter. But loneliness has also been linked, in research from John Cacioppo and others, to poorer sleep quality, often described less as I slept fewer hours, and more as my sleep was less restorative. In plain terms, more fragmentation, more light sleep, and more nights where you technically slept, but you did not land in the deep, safe phases that make you wake up feeling repaired. And it makes sense if you think like a nervous system. Sleep is vulnerability. You are offline, you are not scanning. If your brain is carrying even a low-level assumption of, I am not safe, it is harder to fully let go. Your bedroom can be silent, but your nervous system can still be sleeping in a jungle. That is not poetry, that is physiology. Little micro-awakenings, lighter sleep architecture, and a body that never fully hands the keys over to the repair crew. And those repair crews matter. Deep sleep is when a lot of maintenance gets scheduled. Hormone rhythms, tissue repair signals, metabolic cleanup, and in the brain. The kind of housekeeping that is hard to do when you are fully awake and constantly processing input. I am not saying sleep is a magic detox. I am saying it is a window where maintenance is easier. Here is the nasty part. Inflammation can make sleep worse, and worse sleep can push inflammatory signaling higher. So loneliness does not just cause stress, and then you deal with it. It can set up a feedback loop where the body's nightly reset button gets weaker. So you are not aging faster because you feel stressed. You can age faster because repair time keeps getting stolen. Okay, zoom in another level. When your body lives in this chronic, low-grade threat posture, cells start behaving differently. Not dramatically, not like a science fiction transformation, subtly, thousands of tiny trade-offs. Mitochondria, your cell's energy systems, do not just produce energy. They are also involved in stress signaling. Under chronic demand, with chronic inflammatory signaling in the background, you tend to see more of the biochemical byproducts that, over time, contribute to oxidative stress. Again, that is not a moral judgment. Oxidation is part of life. The question is dose and duration. If you are exposed to constant, we might need to fight or flee chemistry, the balance between damage and repair can tip. Cells have options when they are stressed or damaged. They can repair. They can self-destruct if they are too risky, or they can enter a kind of shutdown state called senescence. Senescence is not bad cells being lazy. It is a protective move. A cell that stops dividing can reduce cancer risk in some contexts. But senescent cells do not just sit quietly forever. Many of them secrete inflammatory signals and other molecules, often discussed as the senescence-associated secretory phenotype, or SASP. This is something Judith Campisi's work helped shape as a major concept in aging biology. So now your chronic state is not just changing hormones or sleep, it is nudging the balance of how tissues handle wear, and how much inflammatory background noise gets emitted inside your body. This is where the smoking comparison gets more interesting. Smoking brings oxidants and toxins from the outside in. It directly irritates tissues, damages blood vessels, and leaves a very real chemical footprint. But loneliness can push the body toward generating more stress signaling from the inside out. Every day, including at night when you are supposed to be rebuilding. Different source, similar kinds of downstream problems, inflammation, vascular strain, and disrupted repair. And at this point, a fair question pops up. Okay, but how do we know this is aging faster and not just feeling run down? There is one detail about this almost nobody talks about outside of research headlines. The body leaves receipts. Researchers have been developing ways to estimate biological age, not your birth certificate age, but how aged your body looks based on patterns in your biology. One of the most talked about approaches uses DNA methylation patterns, often called epigenetic clocks. Steve Horvath's name comes up a lot here because his work helped make this idea mainstream, that certain methylation patterns across the genome correlate with aging and health risk. There are other models too. Morgan Levine's PhenoAge is one that is frequently discussed in science communication because it tries to tie biological age estimates to health outcomes rather than just time. The point is not that there is one perfect clock. The point is that your body's long-term state can show up in measurable patterns. And smoking. Smoking leaves a strong signature. It is one of the clearest, most consistently observed environmental exposures in methylation research. Again, not surprising. You are literally inhaling a chemical mixture into delicate tissue. So how can loneliness compete with that? Most people miss this. Your cells do not stamp the reason you are stressed onto the receipt. They do not write work deadline or break up or move to a new city. They record the state your body was in, how inflammatory, how strained, how disrupted the rhythms were, and how often repair got postponed. Smoking is one kind of input that can shove those patterns in an older direction. Chronic loneliness can be another because it can push multiple aging-related systems at the same time: stress hormones, immune gene expression, sleep continuity, and the downstream cellular wear that follows from living with your foot hovering over the gas pedal. And that sets us up for the real answer to the title. It is not that loneliness is stronger than cigarettes in some mystical way. It is that loneliness can be a 24/7 setting. So loneliness is not soft. It can show up on the same kinds of scoreboards as smoke. Here is the core reveal that ties the whole chain together. Loneliness ages you fast because it is not an emotion your body ignores. It is a missing safety signal your brain treats as an unsolved emergency. Once that switch flips, your body starts making survival-first trade-offs. It spends more time in a slightly activated stress posture. It reprioritizes immune activity toward inflammation. It fragments sleep, which is supposed to be your main repair window. And over time, those system-level choices create more cellular wear, more stress signaling, more inflammatory background, and more postponed maintenance. That is what faster means here. Not wrinkles overnight, a higher biological bill paid daily. Now let us answer the comparison cleanly, because the title makes a strong claim. Smoking is absolutely harmful. It delivers a direct toxic exposure, and it leaves measurable biological signatures. But loneliness can sometimes look like it is aging you faster than smoking every single day, because loneliness can be continuous. A cigarette is a dose. Chronic loneliness is a state. And a state can run in the background all day and then keep running at night by stealing deep sleep so you never fully catch up. To be precise, this is not saying loneliness always outweighs heavy smoking. It is saying that if loneliness is persistent, it can drive aging-related pathways hard enough and long enough that it rivals or exceeds the impact of a daily smoking habit when you look at long-term physiological wear. The cost of that survival setting is that your body becomes less of a build and maintain machine and more of a brace and react machine. Over time, that can mean higher inflammatory burden, more stress on blood vessels, more disrupted metabolic rhythms, and less consistent repair. And yes, behavior plays a role too. When people are lonely, they often move less, eat worse, drink more, and smoke more. That is real. But the mechanism chain we just walked through is one reason researchers take loneliness seriously, even when you try to account for lifestyle as best as you can. The physiology does not wait for a bad habit to start. It can shift just from the perceived state of disconnection. And I want to be very clear about something, because this topic attracts grifters. There is no supplement or gadget that de-lonely-fies your immune system. This is not a product pitch. The leverage points here are behavioral and social, but they are specific. You are not trying to buy your way out of this. You are trying to feed your nervous system the kind of safety evidence it has been missing. Also, no shame. Loneliness is a signal. It exists because, in the right dose, it pushes you to reconnect. The problem is when that signal becomes chronic and your body starts treating it like home. So what changes after you know all this? You stop thinking of connection as a luxury add-on. You start seeing it as a physiological input, like light for your circadian rhythm, or movement for your metabolism. Not optional, not because you should socialize, but because your nervous system runs better when it has proof you are not doing life alone. And that proof does not have to look like a huge friend group. Quantity is not the whole game. For a lot of people, one reliable person, one consistent low-drama connection, does more to calm the threat system than 100 shallow interactions that still feel uncertain. The goal is not to become the most social version of yourself. The goal is to reduce hypervigilance, strengthen the body's brake system, protect sleep continuity, and lower the steady drip of inflammatory signaling. You are trying to give your biology enough safety data to exit survival mode. So what counts as a safety signal to a nervous system? Let us turn that into an actual plan. You are not trying to be more social. You are trying to give your body enough safety information, often and consistently, that it stops running the chronic threat program. Here is a simple protocol you can actually do. First, name the signal. Once a day, 1 minute. Ask yourself, did I have a real two-way interaction today? Not likes, not scrolling, an actual exchange. Track it like you would track sleep. When it is vague, it feels personal. When it is data, it becomes solvable. Second, build one reliable contact slot, 10 to 20 minutes, scheduled weekly. Same day, same time if you can. Predictability is a safety cue. Your nervous system trusts patterns more than promises. Third, use voice, not just text, most days. Voice carries information your body reads as safety, tone, timing, warmth. A short call counts. A voice note counts. You are feeding the system in the format it evolved to believe. Fourth, add low stakes belonging twice a week. A class, a volunteer shift, a group walk, somewhere you show up and you are expected. Repeated exposure beats rare big social events. Fifth, protect sleep continuity tonight. Loneliness plus fragmented sleep is an acceleration loop. Do the boring stuff that reduces wake-ups. Ease off late caffeine. Be cautious with alcohol. And do not let your last hour be doom scrolling that spikes threat detection. Sixth, if you're stuck, escalate without shame. Therapy. Group therapy, structured community support, treat it like a health intervention, not a character flaw. Sometimes you need an external structure to help your nervous system relearn safe. You can quit cigarettes and still run your body in alone in danger mode. This is how you start turning that mode off. Start tonight, so tomorrow at 6:47 in the morning, that glow of an empty phone does not feel like a threat signal to your body.